So the code that we need to create the database is in this grocery DB SQL file. So if you click on it, it should open, and you can see there's a couple tables. We've got some insert statements, and we're creating the database called grocery. So I'm going to highlight all this. Oh, if they're familiar, it's totally random. No. So we're going to go over into Dev Server, and you can do the same thing in Laragon too. Yeah, so make sure you've launched Dev Server. And then what we need to do is go into MySQL administration. So you want to open that up. Now, if you're using Laragon, it makes you log in, but it fills in root, and all you have to do is click the login button. So we're going to go over into the SQL tab, and we're going to paste that code that we copied. And we're going to hit go. And hopefully you're seeing a bunch of green check marks, because that means that all of it worked. And it should work because I test everything before I pull it into to class. So everything should work. And then if you look on the left, we have grocery over here, which is our database. And then we have inventory, manager, and produce. Okay, and then if you expand those out, you can see what's in the columns. And if we actually select inventory, we can actually see what's in the table. Anybody not have the database and tables? This is actually a pretty intuitive interface. I think it's pretty easy to use. Basically, if you click on the database, that's what it shows you. If you click on the tables, that's what it shows you. I mean, the command buttons are right there, so it is pretty intuitive. So, are you guys ready to create a little script to connect? Okay. So the commands that we're going to use to connect to the database are all MySQLi commands. So MySQLi_connect does the actual connection. When we're done using the database, we're going to use MySQLi close to close the connection. Mysqli Query. So when we run selects or we want to insert data, execute any of the database commands, we're going to save those commands into a variable, and we pass it to the database using MySQLi Query. So you're going to see how to do that. MySQLi select DB will actually change the default database. When you initially set your connection, you're telling it what database you want to use. Once you're connected, if you want to change that database, that is the command you would use. MySQLi fetch array basically goes and gets your data. MySQLi fetch associative basically goes and gets your data, puts it in an associative array. And honestly, associative arrays are kind of the way that you want your data retrieved, because then you subscript in using the column name. Okay, so it makes it pretty easy to subscript in. MySQLi number of rows. When you execute a query and it sends you the data is sent in rows. And so this will just tell you how many rows you have. And so obviously a use for that would be a loop, right? If you want to display the data, This will tell you how many rows you have, so you know how many times you have to loop through. Not that we will have errors, but if you have a connection error, you're going to use MySQL connect error to display information about a connection error. MySQL error would be an error for anything else. Fetch all returns an associative array, and parameters that you can send are MySQL associative, or you can tell it you want a numeric array, which is like an indexed array, regular indexed, or you can tell it both. When you do updates or deletions, MySQL affected rows will tell you how many rows were affected. And then if you have retrieved data and you're storing them in a variable, all this data, you'll use MySQL free result when you're done to free up that section of memory. Okay, and then MySQL escape string is one of the things that we're going to be running data through to clean it up. And then we're still going to use that input function that we created last week or the week before. So we're going to basically kind of double clean our data. We're going to run it through this, and we're still going to run it through that function, just to make sure that we don't get any kind of hackers trying to inject things into our database. So after that little overview of all of those functions, we are going to try a simple little connection program. And this is the entire program. Okay, so we'll copy that. We'll paste it in here. And we're going to save this. And if you guys have jump drives, great. If you don't, store it on your Q drive or somewhere you can access. I'm actually going to create a lesson 9 folder. And we're going to call it testconnection.php. And then once we give it the name, you'll see it gets all colorful. So just taking a look at this, we've got MySQL Connect. And so we are connecting to localhost. Our username is root. We do not have a password. And the database we are connecting to is grocery. Okay, so we're storing the result of this connection in a variable called con. And then we are checking it to see if there's an error. So if not con. So basically, if this is not true, it could not make the connection. Okay, and so then, and we actually don't need to print this out twice. I don't know why. Well, that line is in there twice. Yeah, I mean, it's the same line 2 times. Oh, error no. Let me see. Oh, okay, we'll leave it in there. It's not the same. Yeah, no, it's bringing back different information. So yeah, we'll keep it. So basically here it's got a couple different error messages, and then it's exiting out because it can't make the connection. Yeah, don't delete that because it's different. Good catch, guys. So assuming it connects, then it's just going to tell us that it did connect. Okay. And then it'll give us what the host information is, just for fun. Okay. and then it closes the connection. So as long as we've saved this, we can run it. And remember that we're going to have to add a location. So over here, where we have our directories, we've got an added directory. And I did stick mine in the Q drive, so hopefully it can access that. Okay, my computer is freaking out. Q. Okay, so Q drive did work, so all I should have to do is click on this. Now I have an obnoxious amount of stuff in here, but I do have a lesson 9 folder, so I'm going to open it. Here's my test connection. And it should come back and tell you it was successful. Yay! So when we switch from test to production, the only line of code that we have to change is the connection string. So usually in mine, I have 2 connection strings. I have one for test, I have one for production. And I just comment out the one that I'm not using. Okay, so I'll show you guys how to do that. But I did set you up with production accounts. And I actually did add you all to the grocery database. So you all should be able to connect to it. So that's our first little script. Now we're going to do another one. So this one, we are actually going to try to create a new table in our grocery database. So we're going to try to create an employee table. So it's very similar to what you just saw. This is what we're calling our connection string. Okay. Still connecting to localhost, root, and grocery. Then we're checking to see if there was some kind of an error. And if there was, we print a message and we exit out. If there is not an error, we have a SQL variable. And this is the create table command. Okay, so this is pretty much straight SQL. And we're just storing it in variable. And then you can see we've got the MySQli query, and we're giving it the connection string. And then we're giving it the code we want executed, because that code is in our variable. Okay, and the connection string is telling it connect to grocery. Our code is telling it what we want to do. Okay, and then it's storing the result. So if the result is true, that means, yep, it created the employee table. Okay, so then we display a message that the table was created. If it's not true, then there was a problem. Okay, and so then we're displaying that type of message along with the error. Okay, and then we close out of the connection. So we're going to copy this. And we're going to be calling this file createtable.php. Yeah, so we'll do a new one. And I'm going to save it right away. Yep. So after you create this and you have it saved, We're going to go back out into the dev server. So I'm just clicking on back and refreshing my screen so I can see create table. And now I'm going to click on that. And it says it was successfully created. So now if I go into PHP MyAdmin and I refresh this or reload the navigation panel, I can see employee. And personally, I think it's a really good idea when you first are running your code, especially when you're changing things in the database, go in and look at it and make sure it's working. Okay? Whether it is, updating rows or modifying the table structure, always go in and make sure the code is working. And I'm going to click on back. Anybody having any problems?
It is all working according to PHP.
Okay. I was going to say, this all should work. I'm not anticipating problems. Okay. So adding a record. Now we have this new employee table. What we're going to do is add a record. And so this command should look very similar. So the top part of this is the same, right? We're connecting localhost, root, grocery, checking for the error. This time in our SQL variable, the command that we are storing is insert into. And that table is very simple. It has an ID and it has a name. The ID is auto increment, so we do not need to put any data in it. So the only thing we have to add data to is the name. Okay, and so very simple insert statement. Then we're passing the connection string and the code. It executes it, puts the result here. We check it. If it's true, that means it worked. And we display the message. Otherwise, we display an error. Okay, so we are going to copy all of this. Hopefully, if my mouse works. And we're going to call this add record. And once you have that saved, you can go ahead and test it. Isn't that a good message? So record has been inserted. That means it worked. Yay. And if you come over into PHP MyAdmin, do a little refresh, and we actually click on employee. Oh, maybe I need to refresh. It should be in there. Oh, I can see it. There's just not much there. Just says Scooby-Doo. Not a whole lot to look at. Not very exciting. Yep. I think I did use Scooby Snacks for example. So in your assignment, you guys are going to be doing something similar to the grocery database, but you are going to be working with the manager table. So the manager table is very similar to the employee table, but it has name and department in addition to ID. Okay. So I tried to keep these super simple because we're just kind of getting started with this. And then when we start working on bigger projects, they get a lot more complicated. Yeah, so keeping it simple this week. So you guys can kind of get a feel for how this works. Keeping it simple, yep. So this next little script, the purpose is to count the rows. So we do the connection, we check for the error, and this little select command should look super familiar to you guys because it's a basic select, okay, where it chooses all of the rows that are in employee, all one of the rows, because right now we only have one row in there. And then it checks the result, okay? So if the result is true, then we retrieve the number of rows, MySQL number of rows, and it's looking specifically at the result, okay? And we store that in number of rows. And then we're just printing that out. We're just saying, hey, the result set has this many rows in it, okay? Otherwise, if there is a problem, okay, if the result set is false, then we're printing out a little message about that, okay? And then we are freeing up our result set, all one record of it, and closing our connection. So we are going to go ahead. We'll copy this. We're going to call it count rows. Okay, and hopefully you all see result set has one row, or one rows. One rows. Yeah, I know. I could have put the S in parentheses, but. You guys ready for the next one? Okay, so the next one. Select.php is what we're going to call it. And what this one does. So I think you guys are getting the top part, right? We set up the connection. We check for the error. If there's not an error, we have the command. And then we send the connection and the command to the server, okay? So here we're selecting everything from employee, but instead of counting the rows this time, we're actually going to display data. So we're saying if there is something in the result, and there is, we are going to get into a little while loop. And so we're using MySQL fetch array. We're taking the result set, and it's going to kind of convert it into an associative array. And we are storing that in new array. So basically each row gets converted and stored. And then we're subscripting into new array with ID. ID is what we called our column, okay? So we're subscripting in there with ID, storing it. We're subscripting in with name, which is what we called our second column, okay? And we're storing it as emp name, and then we're displaying the data. Now, why aren't we cleaning this? Well, we're retrieving it from the database, so we are assuming the data is good, right? It's not going to be garbage data in our database, hopefully, if we do our inputting correctly. Okay, so when you're retrieving stuff from the database, you can do it just like this. Okay, you can subscript in, throw it into a variable, and use it. Now, if there is a problem, if the result set is false, that means there's nothing there. And then we print out a little error message. And then we free up the result set and we close the connection. So we are going to run this. And we're going to call it select.php. Okay, and you should see the information displayed. Let's say we want to insert data. Inserting data requires basically two files. We need a form, and then we also need a script that will make the connection and create the command and run the command to insert the data into the database. So this does not have any Bootstrap in it. Okay? At the bottom of the lecture demo, I have the same thing with Bootstrap. And I tried to highlight the Bootstrap in yellow. And just to show you, okay, so you see how big this is? Or how small, I should say? Yeah, so this is the menu with, this is our full menu with Bootstrap with all of the commands. But you can see it does get a little bit lengthy when we add in the Bootstrap, okay? Yeah, so we're kind of going through this first with no Bootstrap, okay? Just because I want you guys to be focusing on the process right now. So we're gonna copy this. And we are calling this first one insert form.html. So all lowercase insert-form.html. So this is a pretty simple little form. We basically have one text input box, and then we have a submit button. And as far as the action and the method, that you do need to pay a little attention to. Okay, so the method is post, which means that whatever they enter in as the name is going to go into that post array. Okay, and the key is going to be emp name. Okay, and it's going to get submitted to insert.php. So once they hit submit, it goes to insert.php and automatically emp name is added to the post array. Okay, so we're going to create insert.php next. So here is our insert script. Do the connection, check for the error. If there's no error, okay, this is where we kind of do our double cleaning. Here's the post array I was talking about. So we access the data by subscripting in, emp name is the key. And you'll notice that we've got MySQL, which is our connection string. And we've got post emp name here. And we are sending that to MySQL real escape string. So basically, that is getting rid of some of the junk, okay, that gets inserted. And we're storing it in clean name. Then we're also running it through the test input function. Okay, and this is one that we've been using, okay, where it does a trim, it does a strip slashes, it does HTML special characters, and it returns that clean data. So we're taking the clean name, running it through that, and storing it back into clean name. So at this point, we're certain that the data is clean, okay? And so we are formatting our SQL command, insert into employee, a name, values, and then we've got clean name. And this is the very weird thing about, about how you have to work with these variables. You'll notice that on either side of clean name, we have dots. Those are concatenators. And then we have the quotes. So I believe this is a single quote, double quote. Okay, and so on the other side, we have double quote, single quote. Okay, so on the outsides, we have double quotes. Yeah, this is what messes people up right here, is the quotes. I will tell you that if you have a problem when you are creating any of your scripts, I'm going to tell you to look at your quotes. Because for me, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, okay? Because if you miss one, it messes it up, okay? So I'm pointing that out just so you guys are aware. And this is our command, and then we do our little connection. And if it comes back with true, the record was inserted. Okay? Otherwise, it couldn't for some reason. And we close. So we're going to go ahead and create this script. And again, we're calling it insert.php. Yep, and you can really see in here that it's got a single quote, double quote. And then on the other side, it does reverse order, double quote, single quote. Yeah, it is. And honestly, this is the #1 thing people have trouble with. Okay, so we're saving this, and we are going to test inserting a record. So we're going to go to our insert form, which is really not very exciting. And you guys can just make up whatever employee you want. I'm sticking with the Scooby Gang. Hopefully it says a record has been inserted. And then if you come over and look, we refresh this. And let me click on employee again. You should see both of them. So basically I did a little refresh, hit employee, and it reloaded it. Let's see. So we are going to use that same form, and we're just going to add 4 more employees. You guys can add whoever you want. That'll at least give us some things to work with. You can add yourself. Yeah, or you can move on to Flintstones or whatever. I don't care. Let's see. I got Scoopy, Scrappy, Daphne, Freddie. What's Freddie's last name? Thank you. And we got Shaggy Rogers, right? And Velma's last name is Dinkley, is that right? Hopefully that's how you spell it. So after you do all of that, if you go back, you should be able to run your select. And now you have a lot more employees. Mm-hmm. So we have added employees. Now we're going to learn how to delete them. So not that we're going to delete all those people that we just added, but all those fake cartoon people. So the delete form is very similar. We're still going to do a method of post. And this time when we submit, we are going to send it to delete.php. And then for our name variable, we're still using emp name. So that's what we will subscript in with. So we're going to copy all of the code. And we're going to call this delete dash form. I know. And look at how quickly you're creating all of these. It's like magic. Yep, so after delete form, we are going to do delete.php. And for this, so the top part is the same, okay? Then we are pulling data from a form, so we do need to clean it. So we take the MySQL and post with employee name, run that through MySQL escape string, and then store it in clean name, run it through test input, store it back in itself, and then we do the delete command. Okay, so we've got delete from employee where name equals. So you'll notice anywhere that we put that variable, that clean name variable, we are putting the single double quotes on either side and the concatenator. Okay, and so that's our command. And then we run the command. So we send it the connection string, we send the command, we get the result. And if the result is true, it worked. So that means it found the employee and it deleted them. Okay. And otherwise it's false, there was a problem, and we print the message. Okay. And then we close out. So we are going to create this. And once you have created the delete.php file, we can practice deleting. So we're going to pull up our delete form. So you're going to enter one of the people and delete the record. Hopefully it says a record has been deleted. Now, typically, if I was going to do inserts or if I was going to do deletes, I would use the ID because it's the primary key. So when we get into some more complicated scripting, that is how we're going to do it. But I am trying to keep it simple for you guys. Okay? And I think that entering names is probably a little easier thing for you guys to remember than trying to figure out what the IDs are. So we talked about how to create, we talked about how to read, that's what our select is doing. We talked about how to delete. So the only CRUD operation we have left to talk about is updating. So this is very similar to input and delete because we have to have a form and we have to have a script. So we need two files. So the action on the form is going to go to the update PHP script. Method is post. This form actually has a couple different input areas. We are going to have them enter the old name or the current name and enter the new name. Okay. Yep, so we're going to copy this. We're going to call it update-form. See, very consistent naming. I always do consistent naming because then I don't have to think too hard. So we've got the old name, we have the new name. So once you've got the update form, then we are going to create the update script. So with the update script, top part is the same. We have more to clean now because they're, I know, the cleaning never ends. So we have to clean, we have to clean the old name, we got to clean the new name. Okay, so we got 4 lines of code for that. And so you can see exactly what is what. I've got clean old name, clean new name. Okay, then we have our update. Okay, so we've got update employee set name equal to clean new name, where name equals clean old name. So that should look super familiar to you guys, right? Because this is one that's our SQL update code. Yep, so we're storing that command, and then we're passing the connection string and the command to the database, it executes, and then we check the result. If it's true, it's been updated. Okay? Otherwise, there was a problem. And with this being so simple, a problem would probably be it couldn't find the original name. Okay? Then it closes out. So we are going to create our little update script. And we're going to call it update.php. And now that you have the update form and the update script, you can go ahead and test changing a name. Who do I want to change? Should see the record has been updated. And then if you want to verify, you can actually run your select again. And whatever one you deleted should be gone. And then you should see your name change. So at this point, we do have kind of our full system. So we've got all of the CRUD operations coded. So we can make a little administrative menu. And so we are going to give this a very creative name of menu.html. And then you should be able to use that menu, yep, to access the different forms. And also the select command. Yeah, and this is not styled, so we'll put some styling in here. So you guys saw how this looks, right? So adding a little styling makes it look like this. Yeah. Yeah, so this is with Bootstrap styling added in. So these are the same scripts that you guys just ran. But the only difference is adding a little Bootstrap. Yep. Okay. And this is actually the live version here. So this is interfacing with the production server. Yep, so here it is. So if you guys want to add a little Bootstrap, that menu we just created, what I've highlighted in yellow would have to be added, and I don't think viewport is in there either. And then you can see we've got the class set to container, we've got navbar, and if you add in the navbar expand small, that makes it horizontal instead of vertical. BG Success gave it the green color. Okay, I did want the brand to display over here, so I had to add the brand. Okay, and then I just added a class of nav link to each of the links. Yep, and then you can see that below that, I said that the section here is going to be in rows. And so the heading, I made column 6, and then the graphic I've got as column, whatever it is, 4. Okay, so this would make it look a lot nicer. Here's the select with all of the Bootstrap added. So we have if result, right? You guys all remember this code that's checking the result. And here's the array. So in between, this is all the HTML needed to display this menu system and the heading for the table. Okay, that's what all of this highlighted code does. You can see the styling, and this is just straight HTML. I have echo with a single quote through all of the HTML right in there. Now, could you put that into an include? Absolutely, you can. And when I show you guys larger projects next week, the menu system will be in an include, okay, because it'll shorten up our code, okay? And you can see for the table, I've got the headings here. Then I get into the while loop. Inside the while loop, where I want to print the data, okay, that's where I do the rows. So I've got the opening TR for the row, TD is the column. Okay, I should have highlighted further because that's also a column, and then we've got the ending row. okay? And it'll stay in this loop and basically print out each row of data. When it runs out of rows, then it comes down here. You can see I've got another echo. And here's my opening quote. Here's my closing quote. And then in between, I'm ending the table. This is just pretty much straight HTML here, okay, with a semicolon at the end. Yep, and then I finish it off with the rest of the PHP. Personally, I think if you are going to insert like the Bootstrap into your PHP, I would do it this exact way that I showed you today. I would get the PHP code working, okay, without any styling, get it working, then add the styling in. Because the styling is simply an echo with a single quote where it starts and a single quote where it ends. It's just HTML, okay? So that is all straight HTML. The hard part is getting the PHP to work. So I am giving you the code for this wild water management system. And why I combined it with a grocery store, I don't know. The company is diversifying. That's all I can say. Okay? You guys are going to be downloading that. I would definitely download that and use it kind of as a starter for your assignment, because what the